Antrieb vom Bobsleigh. Also ist es an der Zeit, die Startliste vorzulesen für den zweiten Lauf. Und Georgi Jordache. 1600 Rückstand hatten die Chinesen Sun Kai-Ti, Ding-Song, Yin-Long und an 3. Sie waren 14. und starten als 7. Als 8. dann ging ins Rennen die US-Amerikaner um Frank der Ducker, Carsten Fissering, Charles Volker und Jared.
Tell everyone home. First one back.
Als 15. dann die 6. aus dem ersten Durchgang Markus Reichel, Sascha Stephan, Sebastian Mitterer, Christian. Hört sich gut an. Schauen wir nach oben. Da steht Winterberg, er wird heute diesen zweiten Lauf, den abschließenden Lauf, das große Finale hier. Ist unterwegs, somit ist der zweite Lauf quasi eröffnet. Wir machen jetzt noch ein bisschen Werbung. Sie haben das Ziel erreicht. Uli Becker-Riedemann und sein Anschieber. Herzlichen Applaus für die beiden. Immer wieder gerne hier gesehen. Als Fußballpilot, diese erfahrenen Athleten.
Welcome back to the final visit to Winterberg in Germany, race 3 of the IBSF Bobsleigh four-man season. In fact, race 2 of the four-man season. Second race weekend with the combined programme after Altenberg. Sigulda was a double two-man weekend for bobsleigh four-man back in action here in Winterberg. Well, heading into the second heat, the fastest 20 crews go down in reverse order. And in third place is the crew that finished in third place in the World Championships here in the four-man in February 2024. Last time they raced top-flight sleds on this track, Adam Amor. Now, unlike the women's race this morning, which was snow-affected, it's a tight lead group. 1700s covers the top three. In second place, another German crew, Francesco Friedrich, 9 times winner on this track and the world champion in four-man as well as two-man in Winterberg in 2024. And therefore you would expect it's France in second and Johannes Lochner in first, but it's not. A 3-time consecutive silver medalist in the last 3 World Cup outings on the track. It is Great Britain's Brad Hall who leads the field. Not by much, and when not by much, I mean 1300ths of a second. Francesco Friedrich is behind him. But right now, Brad Hall has the upper hand. Neither had a perfect run, so there is room to tidy up and improve. And of course, Friedrich, with 9 wins on this track, always looking for more, would like to go for a 10th. Patrick Baumgartner a fine 4th, ahead of Hansi Lochner and Markus Treichel. Matti Behunek and Jakob Mandelbauer out very early, first couple of sleds in the first heat, and they had the benefit of good ice. That puts them in the top 10 ahead of Cedric Follodor, and a 3-way tie for 10th. Look, China's Yi Chun-jan, Jacobs-Kellender and Mickey Vogt. Then Frank Del Duca, they had problems with the load in that sled all the way down. Sun Kai-chi, Mihai Tentea and Timo Rona are tied together in 15th spot. And further on down the top 20, Taylor Austin, Pat Norton, Dave Wesselink, the rookie from the Netherlands, and Adam Baird. Kim Jin-soo crashed in the final stages of his run, didn't get across the line in time to make the top 20, though they did finish. Martin Krantz of Liechtenstein, the crew, did not start. So I'm assuming that one of their guys is either ill or injured, and there is no spare. Now, there are alternates racing in the second heat. The snow is returning. What's that going to do to the track? What is that going to do to the competition? Well, it's going to make things very uncertain, is what it's obviously going to do. Beyond that, I'm afraid, we're not entirely sure. So there will be a slight delay to the start, and another crash, I'm afraid. One of the 4 running sleds has crashed. Normally 2 or 3 sleds driven either by development drivers from the home nation or from the club. So here it would be BSV Winterberg. That would be supplying them. Some of them, though, will be other athletes. Lauren Brzezowski, for instance, from the USA, has been forerunning here just to get experience of the track. Not racing, but just to learn the track and to spend more time here. So a number of athletes will do that. A number of younger sliders will volunteer to be forerunners in skeleton and in bobsleigh. But as with everything else, like the skater on ice, you only realise how slippery the ice is when they're skidding across it on their backside instead of gliding across it on their skates. And bobsleigh and skeleton and luge and all the others are exactly the same. People go down in skiing, people go down in bobsleds. It happens. Well, there is your start draw, 20 down to 1. First sled away will be British, last sled away will be British as well. If they meet in the top 10, that will be a freaky race, I have to say. And already trouble for Adam Baird. Now, the sled right before him, Kim Jin-soo of Korea, in Heat 1 crashed, and so they had a 5-minute delay. There is now a delay before the start, but that's possibly good news for Luca Williams. Now, Luca was in the coach's box watching the first heat. He will be in the sled in the second heat because Ollie Butterworth, who made his debut in the 2-man yesterday and the 4-man today, injured a quad at the start. So their 5:29 wasn't the start that they were hoping for, and part of that is it was basically 3 pushing and 1 running along trying to climb into the sled. So Adam Baird with Austin Millard, Luca Williams in Heat 2, and Alex Cartagena will be on the back. So you can see them in there. Dave Vesselink of the Netherlands and his crew will also, of course, like everybody else now, be backed up because of the drama further down the track. So whenever somebody crashes, there's now a mandatory 5-minute hold on the track, and that's to allow for track inspection to make sure that everything is safe and clear. With snow falling, it also gives a little bit more of a chance to brush the start, to blow snow out of the grooves and so on. This big covered start area was added a few years ago, but it still acts like a wind tunnel. The wind comes up the hill and straight into the faces of the athletes. That is actually the prevailing direction. That's much more often than not. Graham Richardson, the coach, you saw him on the ice there, seen it all, done it all, been there before many times. I don't think there's many coaches that haven't had to stand by a sled waiting either in training or in races at various different levels for the track to be cleared, and not too many athletes that haven't experienced it either. Of course, a delay for the first of our sleds sets everybody back by 5 minutes, and they'll be hoping that there are no further incidents during the course of the race, because the later you wait, the more snow has a chance to settle on the track. We saw in the first heat, the first 2 sleds out, Jakob Mandelbauer and Mate Behenek, as well as Frank Del Duca, actually had better track conditions, faster ice to play with. Now, Del Duca's was a little bit ruined because they had a drama loading at the start, and one of the guys, I think Guy at 3, was seated on the brake handles and could not get down into the sled properly, and as a result was moving around. The weight was in the wrong place and the sled wasn't handling properly, and that slowed them down. But that kind of thing does happen a little bit. The other 2, though, who were first and second out, Jakob Mandelbauer and Mate Behenek, they come from outside the top 10 seeded sleds, so wouldn't necessarily be expected to be in the top 10. They are both, however, firmly inside the top 10 after the first heat, with Mandelbauer in 8th and Behenek in 7th. That looks like a slightly longer hold now, the sled being pulled away from the track into the holding area. See the little handles you use there for pushing the sled and for lifting it up. Well, the Dutch are going back downstairs to the changing room. Big cheers from the orange in the crowd. So it looks like we have a longer hold than expected. Take a look around the start area. That's actually not a changing room, that is an officials room, and the crews just wait there when there's a hold. Behind the start there's a big ice patch. Often the sleds will be rested runners down on an ice patch for a minute to cool the runners if the day has reasonably high ambient warmth. I think that's possibly not necessarily the case today, but on a sunny day, and particularly in St Moritz, actually almost always have at least a 1 minute on ice before you go to the start area. Glühwein's going down well, is it, folks? Should be. Best Glühwein stand in the business here at the bottom in Winterberg. The Bratwurst mit Pommes. That's what you call a lunch. Proper bobsleigh food. Well, track workers examining the track. They also, of course, if the sled has crashed moderately high up, it takes a while for it to come to rest, and it has to be rescued out of the track. A lot of the crashes in competition happen low down, at the sort of top of your picture there. Left-hander 11, 1200, right-hander 12, left-hander 13, right-hander 13, and then left-hander 14. They happen down at the bottom there. And then that means often that the sled is going fast enough that it will come across the finish line and up towards the finish area, where it can then be grabbed and righted once the crew are out of it and sort of pulled up to the finish or pushed up to the finish from there. Right, now then, so little confusion between the Dutch and the Brits. The Brits are coming out. Adam Baird, helmet off now, going to ask what's going on. Speaking to Graham Richardson. Not been the best of days for the British crew, I'm afraid. I'll come and get you all right. Okay, so as soon as they are told that we're within 5 minutes of the start. They will go and get the crew again. So Sean Olsen and Graham Richardson will be conferring with the jury, but also with the track officials. Now, it's not the jury that is deciding the track needs to be held, it's the track officials reporting back and saying, we have an issue with whatever they have an issue with. And then the jury will have to work on that. And the delay is that one of the crew members of the sled that crashed is being attended to by the doctors in the ambulance, which means it is no longer available for a crew who would crash. So until that has been sorted out, then we don't have the requisite medical cover. So the medical cover is there, it is just busy, and until it is no longer busy, we won't be starting the race. So what can we tell you? This might be a little moment or two actually to tell you about a new safety initiative which has been launched here. Martin in the truck, if you've got a little bit of footage of B-roll of the Allianz safety bob, this would be a good time to talk about that. Allianz is a massive insurance company, as I'm sure a lot of you know, based here in Germany, and among the various other things that they do, as well as providing health, medical insurance, car insurance, and all sorts of other insurances, and sponsoring stadiums and so on, is that they have AZT, the Allianz Safety Centre. This was set up by a man called Professor Max Danner. Now, for motor racing fans like myself, he is the father of ex-Grand Prix driver Christian Danner. And he set up the foundation to investigate all sorts of motoring related initially and other safety issues. And they work on providing further safety information for all sorts of different disciplines. And Allianz have brought them in with the IBSF into bobsled. Now, we all know what happened in Altenberg last season with two major crashes which could have been very much more damaging than they actually were. Sanjay Mikkel of Switzerland was knocked unconscious, came out of the sled in a training crash, and was unable to move in the sled in the track because he was unconscious, lying in the track when the sled ran back down the hill and hit him, and he was very severely injured. Teammate and driver Mickey Vogt was injured as well and is only competing this weekend for the first time. And Hansi Lottner crashed as well and fractured his neck in a crash there. Now, that's not necessarily track related. That can happen in any crash. You think back to Chris Spring's big crash in Altenberg. But Allianz and the IBSF have got together and set up a sled with lots of monitoring equipment in it, as well as videos and so on, to try and figure out if there's something in the forces of the sleds that's not quite yet understood that could be used to try and make the track safer or to make the sleds safer for the athletes. Everybody understands that in racing, nobody's wrapped in bubble wrap. There is potential danger all the time. And that is part of the thrill, really, isn't it, of going fast in a car or going fast on a skeleton sled, a luge sled, a bobsled. It's controlling that speed right on the limit. And it's right on the limit where performance exists. Otherwise, it's just a tourist ride, like a taxi bob that you or I would take, rather than a race that the athletes would participate in. And that's the Olympic spirit, you know, to try and Citius Altius Fortis, higher, faster, stronger. That's the whole point of it, is to push the limits. That's why we're constantly breaking track records, start records, why athletes are getting bigger and more powerful, why sleds are getting more developed, why they're getting faster. But with that speed, safety has to travel as well. And so Allianz and the IBS have come up with this sled. Now, it's being driven here for the first time as a forerunner sled. And it's being driven by Christoph Hafer. Manny Mahata will drive it in Lillehammer. Christian Reich will drive it in St. Moritz as well, so that'll be in a week's time. And the guys from the Allianz Safety Centre will be ingesting all the data, all the video, and trying to figure out if there's or what they can help the IBSF with in terms of making the sport as safe as is humanly possible. You see the ambulance returning back down to the bottom end of the track. And predominantly, crashes end up with the track with the sled finding the low point in the track as it comes to a halt. So that tends to be where the medical crews are. If you crash at the top of the track, there's no easy way out. The sled is almost always going to find its way down to the bottom with or without some or all of the crew. So the medical crew tend to be down there at the bottom. And as soon as they are free and they have attended to the forerunners, then we will be ready to go racing again. But for now, it's hurry up and wait. Everybody sitting or warming up, trying to keep their focus. And again, as ever, unless it's a heavy snowfall that cancels a heat, everybody knows that the delays are usually for one reason and one reason only, and that is because somebody else has had an incident. And so the frustration is always there because it upsets your plans, but it is tempered with the fact that there for the grace of God go I. And one of the other new initiatives that the IBSF has inaugurated this year is an athlete mentoring program. And what they've done is reached out to the more experienced athletes in the field and asked them to mentor some of the younger athletes. And actually the response has been really strong among some of the senior, the more experienced athletes, not necessarily older, but more experienced, helping out with the younger athletes. So, for instance, Lara Nolte stepping up to mentor Maya Voigt this weekend. Maya Voigt, the 2024 Youth Olympic Women's Bobsleigh champion. In the monobob, she competed for the first time this weekend and being mentored. So not coached, but just mentored, just a few words that here and there, and a little bit of advice from Lara Nolte. And Lara was saying, you know, of course it's a great opportunity to try and help younger athletes maybe avoid some of the pitfalls of life that you otherwise would come across, or just reassure you that maybe the things that you're finding out of that little sort of pre-Olympic and Olympic bubble to be awkward or difficult or different are A, quite normal, and B, actually quite surmountable. And we are now looking at an hour delay for the start. So we were due to get off at 14:30, now due to be 15:30, so a little over 45 minutes from now. So a little under 45 minutes from now, 40 minutes from now. So that is going to be a long hold. So nothing much we can do about that, I'm afraid. But our athletes are going to have to reset themselves. And at least now they have a definite starting time. 14:30 was originally. It's going to be 15:30 CET, so 14:30 Greenwich Mean Time. Ken, that means 09:30 Eastern. So, yeah, a little bit under 40 minutes from now. So I'm going to take a little pause and leave you to enjoy the track music. Why don't you make yourself a coffee and a Glühwein and a Bratwurst and get into the spirit. We will be back with action at 15:30 CET, 14:30 GMT, 08.
Ladeplatz, den bitte entfernen. Please remove all the vehicles from the helipad. Also bitte unverzüglich entfernen. Es kommt jetzt der Hubschrauber. Um 15:30 Uhr geht es dann gleich weiter mit dem zweiten Lauf nach der Verletzungsbehandlung der Anschieberin F30, F330 will go on with the second heat. Offizielle Bahnzeit 15:12 Uhr. In 20 Minuten geht es weiter mit dem zweiten Lauf im Viererbob der Männer. Official track time 15:12. In 20 minutes we will start official the performance of the second heat.
Fingernägel fallen gleich ab, wie lange okay.
Nicht so viel auf. Sind sie weggefahren worden?
Das hat jetzt so lange gedauert.
Ganz normal. Menschen, die verdienen,
Offizielle Laufzeit 15:22 with Winterberg time 15:22. In 10 minutes we will start the second heat of Bobsleigh. In 10 Minuten startet dann der zweite Lauf. Renn-Wochenende. Offizielle Bahrzeit 15:27, official track time 15:27. In 5 minutes we will start the second heat of Vormann Bobsleigh. In 5 Minuten startet dann der zweite Lauf der Männer in Februar.
Welcome back to Winterberg in Germany. Delay to the start of the final heat of the weekend, the four-man bobsleigh, but it does mean that the weather seems to have settled down a little bit as we get ready for the second and deciding run of the four-man. So an hour later than our advertised programme, we get underway with 20 sleds ready to go. Now, in the interim, between the end of the first heat and the beginning, or the scheduled beginning of the second, there were a couple of athlete changes. We'll nominate those as we get through. And I think probably just a couple of injuries on the way through. Adam Baird of Great Britain will be first off. Last off, our first heat leader, Great Britain's Brad Hall, his teammate. So let's see what happens in the interim between the two British sleds. Got delay because of a crash for one of the forerunners. That has all been attended to. They are in medical attention, and our medical services are back ready to look after the athletes should they need them. Air temperature 2 degrees, ice -2, so it's going to be a little frosty, the track, and a bit of rain coming down. Now, that's probably a little bit better than snow because it helps lubricate the running surface a fraction. So let's get underway then with Great Britain's Adam Baird, Austin Millward at 2, Luca Williams in for the injured Ollie Butterworth, who pulled a quad muscle in the first start, and Alex Cartagena making his debut today in the four-man sled. He is on the back at 4 with the RAF roundel on his helmet. So Adam Baird and the crew with a 5-minute delay, then a 10-minute delay, and in the end, what turned into an hour-long delay before they get underway. And that'll be the same for everybody else as well, of course. Nobody else has been racing in the interim. So it's going to be a slightly longer day than expected. So here we go. Luca Williams there at 3 in place of debutant Ollie Butterworth. Hopefully he'll be fit to go next week in St. Moritz. He'll be going to St. Moritz anyway. Now then, these guys, 20th in the first heat of 5:29. So they didn't have the speed at the start that they were expecting. Ollie Butterworth was able to run alongside the sled and get in, but certainly wasn't getting the power that he would have hoped for. 5:30. Well, they had enough to make it into the top 20. And since only 20 sleds go, they will be absolutely guaranteed a top 20 finish, even if they all just jogged off and one of them had to sit in. So that is the good news. Nice lines as well from Adam Baird. 97 kilometers an hour in the Kreisel. And he is giving us an indication perhaps of what we can expect from the track on the way down. Ooh, little skiddy there from 11 to 12, 9 to 10 rather. Whoa, late off 13, rattles the wall, 135.7 down at the bottom. And in old money, that is 84.3 miles an hour. It was a long wait to get the run underway. And they came down 54.94, a tenth slower than the first 54.85. Well, the track probably frosting a little, particularly given the humidity of the air from the snow earlier and the rain now. I'm not sure that it's quite as quick a running surface as it was earlier today. And a couple of wild moments there. I'm sure there were a couple of silent curses muttered as the sled went weightless. But they're down and they have the lead. 19 sleds remain. Next up, rookie Dave Wesselink, also making his debut here. Joris Pauls, and then the more experienced Jelen and Janko Francic. 12 and 24 World Cup starts under their belts, respectively. 5:19. They started 5:19 in the first heat as well. And so their 1/10 of a second advantage over the Brits is doubled to 2/10. Well, Wesselink competed in the World Championships here in February 2024. And he ended up in 16th position. It's a similarly strong field here, not quite as many smaller nations as would have been in the World Championships, but all the big hitters definitely in town. Better speed than the British sled by a whisker. They're at 60 miles an hour through the Kreisel. Huge skid and he's gone. And didn't quite come back up. Kim Jin-soo went similarly in the first heat, but the sled righted itself out of the final corner. Track workers there to stop the sled sliding back down. You can see in the orange jacket one of their teammates helping as well. And the crew starting to wriggle out of their tiny enclosure. The lower labyrinth, you can see it on the right-hand side of the picture there, snaking its way down the hill and then climbing through 14. Look at 14, the final corner. Starts on the extreme right of your picture, goes uphill all the way through across the line and through to the finish. Well, Dave Wesselink is out. But here, out of 11. Into 12, and then 13, high in 13. And in fact, that's 9 and 10, so that was 7, 8, 9, and out of 10, rolling over. And a hard, crunching impact with the ice into the final corner. Well, the crew walking back up, looks like they are okay. I'm sure the medical crew will just give them a check over, make sure they feel okay. And there's no hint of concussion. There's the driver. Disappointed, but they came across the finish line. They recorded a time, and actually the time was exactly the same in total as the Brits, a 55.03 down time. So we actually have a tie for the lead. They are both on a total time of 1 minute 49.79 seconds. So although they crashed, they didn't actually drop a spot. Well, mandatory 5-minute pause. Track workers to check the track. So one of the Canadian coaches just picking bits of ice out of the groove. On the phone back to the head of the track, who then reports to the jury president. The president of the IBSF jury is responsible for making sure that the race is safe and fair, and that the rules are applied as they should be, and the race is run as it should be. It is the track officials who look after the track, the workers who are responsible for the actual running surface and all of that. So the IBSF doesn't bring track workers to the tracks. They already live and work here. The IBSF comes in with the sporting organisation that sits alongside the local organisers. And here at BSV Winterberg, the local sliding club, with decades of experience, over half a century of running this track as an artificial track. With his back to us, Jesse Lumsden, Olympic brakeman.
2 minutes.
And they're being told by the track that there is 2 minutes remaining in the track hold. So the crew will come out. Effectively now, this is the equivalent of the previous sled has just left the starting block, and the next crew come along and their sled is then put onto the ice in preparation for their departure. So you can see it's laid on its side. The runners are up in the air. The runners, you would like to be as warm as possible. There is a regulation, or there are regulations to stop you heating the runners, which makes them slide. A hot knife through butter would be the expression you would probably most think of in English. Certainly a hot runner slides over ice faster than a cold one. And so there is a controlled runner, a blank runner hanging in the shade at the start, and that is the temperature by which all others are judged. You can't be outside of a plus or minus 2 degrees Celsius region from that runner. So you try and keep the runners in the air as much as possible. No icebox here. Well, there is Adam Baird, second from the right, and the rest of the boys. So hopefully they will be joined by Dave Wesselink and his teammates, the Dutch, after they've been checked over and got their gear, because they are the joint leaders. Next up then, Pat Norton and the crew, Mike Evelyn, newcomer Keaton Bruegeling making his debut, and not just his World Cup debut either. Keaton Bruegeling, very new to the sport, 11 races in North America's Cup and Europe Cup, and this is his first World Cup race. And on the back, Shaq Murray-Lawrence, 11th four-man World Cup for Shaq. So the guys that sit at 2 and 3 push on the side handles. The brakeman is in the centre of this line of scrimmage, if you like. That's Shaq. All right, green light means 60 seconds. Not to leave the starting block, but to break the starting beam. 30 metres of timed start distance. So away they go. Pat Norton starting from the front handle, as many drivers do. 5:18 is the getaway. They started 5:16 in the first heat. Drove nicely, Pat Norton. And another smooth start to the run. been a while since he's raced here, wasn't in the last World Cup, and wasn't in the World Championships here in February 24 either. It's only his 5th World Cup. Hasn't had a World Cup outing on the track. Whoa! And the danger zone strikes again. They too will come across the line and will record a time. So they will be classified as finishers with a 56.36. Now, an empty sled across the line isn't enough to classify as a finisher. It should stop there. See hands coming out to try and grab the ice wall to make sure it doesn't slide down backwards. And the crew are out. So as long as all members of the crew, take care, track workers. As long as all members of the crew remain in the sled as it crosses the line. If you're on a monobob, it's the driver. If it's skeleton, you must be in contact with your sled, in control of your sled across the line. Okay, so here we go. Rising out of the Kreisel. This is where the danger starts. Gets very hung up. I'm sorry, that's 9 into 10. And then out of 10, late, and then on to 11. Sled rolling over. Labyrinth claims another victim. Now this is a track where you bring younger athletes to learn the sport, but you are sliding on ice. There is always the potential for incidents. So our second crash in 2 sleds. Nothing that anybody wants to see, but for Adam Baird, if he thought his day hadn't gone particularly well, this puts it in a new light, doesn't it? To have a brakeman suffer an injury is one thing, but the 2 sleds that followed him down both crashed. So you start to feel that actually perhaps we just dodged a little bullet there. Second of our Canadian team's sled on the ice, waiting for Taylor Austin, again in the white beanie there. Coach waiting for the word. Well, this is a strange final heat for the weekend. Taylor Austin doing what he absolutely should be doing, is chilling as much as possible there in the background. And the others distracting themselves in whatever way they can. Crashes happen in races, crashes happen in training. And so athletes are not unaccustomed to the delays and the frustration that comes with it. You can't let that frustration lead to distraction. So I'm liking the selection. Bit of a reindeer hat, a couple of the wolf packer there. And track workers just making sure the track is okay. Doesn't look like it's done too much damage. Corner 9 there though. Everybody's been coming off late in the last couple of days. Now they're not plastering, but it is the equivalent of. The bucket there contains ice or snow with water, so it's a sort of nearly freezing slush, and with that plasterer's trowel they'll spread it on over any cracks or gouges, a little bit like a filler you might use on drywall to just fill any holes. And because the track is refrigerated, that difference between absolute freezing point and freezing point will quickly be overcome, and it will solidify in the holes. Well, great to see fans out here today despite some pretty inclement weather. Yesterday was a clear sunny day and Saturday was absolutely heaving. Well, Lyndon Rush has been in this position as a coach a number of times, as a driver lots of times. Teodora Vlad there on the right-hand side. In fact, that's Georgieta Popescu on the left, and her brakewoman on the right-hand side. They were racing this morning. And as ever, Latvian fans. As I said yesterday, for a tiny country with a population of around 2 million, it seems that Latvia's biggest export is actually fellow Latvians. They tend to be everywhere, wherever you go. If you're racing in Whistler, Park City, Lake Placid, there's always Latvians in the crowd. They certainly make themselves known. So Austin Taylor, Johan Eskrik Parkinson. You just saw him there. Mark Zanet and Chris Ashley, the crew. Francesco Friedrichs fans up there at the finish area. Well, they're not his only fans. Loads and loads and loads of fans. And the sled out of the track now, being recovered onto a flatbed. Crew being checked over by the medical crew. And again, while the ambulance is occupied, while the medical practitioners are occupied, then the track hold will continue. Well, the good news is that our sleds don't need headlights. The track is illuminated because it is going to be dark, I think, by the time we get finished. What are we now? 3:48. There's Linden looking for confirmation. Has he had the 2-minute warning? Looks like Jesse has told the boys they're coming out. Behind them, following some of our Swiss athletes. That was Tim Annan you just saw going through. He'll be in the next sled. Oh, no, they're being sent back in. Somebody get those guys some war clothing. I know they're hard as all get out, but it's not the warmest day. I think they might be standing around a lot. Well, Dave Vesselink and his crew haven't joined Adam Baird in the leaders' box. Now, what's Peter saying? Our jury president conferring again with the track officials there on the left-hand side, and Christoph Lang and the sporting director as well. Canadians going back into the warm. Now, somebody leant against something and turned the lights off in there, because there is light. There was light earlier, so they need to go and find the light switch. And Tim Annan going in with them. Now, why is he there, not with the other guys? Well, the other guys are in the changing room downstairs. Okay, so track announcer saying 2 minutes after the track hold we will start the next bob. And the idea really, obviously, to try and keep the crowd entertained and informed when the sleds are moving, but also when they're not. So, back out for the third time come our Canadians and our floor manager, Mark van Klippenberg. Yes, he's Dutch. Why? Why did you ask? I gather is helping out with some warm clothing for the Brits, sending them into the warm, into the changing room. I don't know if their down bags didn't get there, if they haven't got stuff, or if they just felt they couldn't leave the leaders' box. I mean, I know Ilko won't have let them go, because that's just the way he is. You know, he's not a nice guy, our Finnish cameraman. He's a, you know, he's a hard taskmaster. And they've been sent into the warm. And rightly so. When did they leave? 21 minutes ago. They started their race, and for 19 minutes they've been stood out in the cold. Ilko's lovely, by the way. That's why everybody responds well to him. Taylor Austin, Johan Eskrik Parkinson, Mark Zanet, and Craig Ashley for Chris Ashley for Canada. Here is the crew. And our current leaders, Dave Vesselink and Adam Baird of the Netherlands and Great Britain. Ironically, two teams that have trained very often together. Track is clear finally for the Canadians. So Taylor Austin, 10th World Cup start for him. First ever in four-man for Johan Eskrik Parkinson at 2. And he's made his two-man debut yesterday, 5:38 the getaway. Only a whisker off 5:36 their first heat. There's no point jogging off after a series of crashes, because you're going to be going almost as fast at the bottom. That half a kilometre an hour difference by the time you get down below corner 10 is not going to make much difference. Out of 6 into the Kreisel, second best speed. He's got a slender advantage over the joint leaders. Nicely out of the Kreisel, into 9. Through 10, little skid onto 11. Don't let it rise too high off 11. Gets the transition nailed nicely. Little worrying in 13, but he's down and done. He should have the lead, and he does. 2600s up, 54.85. Well, Italian clothing, German clothing, and even some Team GB clothing as well there for the British boys. So well done to our crew down there on the finish line, helping out. That's what happens when you're a tiny team. Well, Taylor Austin putting any nerves behind him. Good drive down the run here. 13-14 transition, just a little later than he might have liked. Whoa, careful. Well, ice is slippery, but wet ice is really treacherous. So next up, and no delay this time for Timo Röner of Switzerland. Greg Jones at 2, Tim Annan we just saw at 3, babyface Tim Annan, and Mathieu Herbsberger at 4. These guys were 13th out of the start shed in the first heat, and 9th World Cup start for Timo Röner. Finished 14th in the World Championships, and 15th place in a two-way tie with Mihai Tentea after the first heat. Slender advantage over Taylor Austin, 1900ths of a second. 5:27 getaway, that's a decent start. They started exactly the same as their first heat. Röner now looking like he's a firm part of the regular lineup of the Swiss World Cup team. And that's only got to be good for Switzerland and for Timo Röner's performances. Coming in occasionally at the top level, he wasn't really inspiring him with confidence all the time. It does mean that he's got access to the World Cup starters as well. Second best speed, half a second up on Taylor Austin. From 32 out to 4800s, good looking drive from Timo Röner. 5200s up. Second best speed, but it's going to be a big lead at the line. Well, their run, just 700ths of a second slower than their first heat, 800 slower, but it was a good run in these conditions. So Timo Röner there takes the lead, son of Marcel Röner. And on his crew, Tim Annan, son of Martin Annan. Two drivers whose careers kind of just about overlap. Timo Röner just getting to the end of his pomp as Martin Annan was starting to work his way into the Swiss team. There is Timo Röner, still drizzling gently. Timo Röner leads, eventually 5 sleds down. Well, in the tie for 15th place with Timo Röner, our current leader, Mihai Tentea. Tentea set the time, so Röner goes first, Tentea goes second. It's got Konstantin Dinescu making his debut here, Mihai Pacianu and Georg Jordash, regulars on the back of the sled. 5:25 getaway, they started 5:23 in the first heat. And the four-man sled's noticeably cleaner than anything else through the zero curve and turn 1. Tied to the 100th with Timo Röner after the first heat. Tied to the 100th at the second clock, but dropping into the red now. 500's back. Little high line maybe in the Kreisel, skidding off into 8, down to corner 9. Speed's not there, only the 5th best velocity. So he's losing ground to Rona. 15, 16, 22 hundredths back. Third best speed, he'll be a quarter of a second behind. 54.80, not enough to drop more than one spot. Or at least the tie is broken in favour of Timo Rona. Mihai Pacianu there shaking his head as they come into the station. That's Tentea, relatively pleased with that. Mihai didn't start the World Championships in February. Finished 10th in the season opener in Altenburg. And his best result here, January 2021, a 12th place finish. Not sure he's going to quite get to that today, though. Next up, the first of 2 Chinese sleds, Sun Kai-chi, with Ding Song, Ye Jie-yong and rookie An Tai. An Tai made his 2-man World Cup debut already. This is his 4-man World Cup debut. Started behind Sun in the 2-man in Altenburg. Didn't race in the 4-man, though, and has no other races, the brakeman. An Tai just 18 years old. I beg your pardon, 23 years old. So a real rookie. 5:21 getaway. Of course, I say he's got no other races. He's got no other official international races. He could have done dozens of runs and training runs and racing back home unofficially in Beijing. 1100s up from the start, 5:21. And now out to 1400s over Timo Rona, but the gap's coming back down. The speed's not there into the Kreisel. Rona was definitely quicker. 60 miles an hour and accelerating again as they come down through the labyrinth. They'll be knocking on 80 miles an hour at the bottom of the track. On sheet ice, on narrow runners with no brakes, 84 miles an hour. But Sun drops behind, and Timo Rona with the lead. Top speed at the bottom. Ooh, stop. They've gone over the end of the ice. That's not going to help the condition of the runners much. Luckily, there's some snow down there, because otherwise it's raw concrete. We have seen sleds go right the way up and just about go off the end there. Hi, Lamindine, how are you today? Again, through the labyrinth. 12-13 crossover is becoming increasingly tricky. 13-14, not making friends with many either. Well, Sun Kai-chi slips 1, Timo Rona leads, and there are 13 sleds to go. Now we get to Frank Del Duca with Carsten Vissering, Charles Volker, and the newcomer Dylan Gilbert on the sled. They had a drama with the load. Couldn't quite get everybody in. And as a result, one of the brakemen ended up sitting on the braking handles. You can see them wriggling, trying to get in. That looks like a better load. Dylan Gilbert, the brakeman, making his debut, the 27-year-old, in this race. 1 race ever officially in his career. 2-man World Cup in Altenburg in December 24. That was the 2-man season opener. Well, Del Duca a little bit more experienced. 14th drive in World Cup 4-man. Gap coming right down, though, to Timo Rona. Still not finding the speed. It wasn't about where the brakemen were sitting in the first heat. There's something else. It may just be down to runner choice for the ice temperature. You see there's already water running down the ice. Timo Rona and the crew are still in the leader's box. So 54.78 run for Frank Del Duca. 4,100 slower than his first heat. Looks like they might need to work on where everybody sits in the sled. Doesn't look entirely comfortable still. Tapping the tour on the left. We'll be working with the boys on that, I'm sure. Head of the bobsleigh programme. Next up, part of our three-way dead heat for 10th. Mickey Vogt with Dominik Schlepfer, Dominik Hufschmidt and Andreas Haas. Haas was on the two-man with him yesterday as Mickey Vogt returns for the first time since his crash in training in Altenburg last season. He was injured. Teammate Sandro Michel critically injured. Still on the road to recovery, Sandro. Hopefully the team will see him again in St. Moritz. 5:22 the start. They started 5:21 in the first heat. $2,400s up on our leader, Timo Röner. 1,300s, 1,200s of that from the first heat, so he's doubling his advantage already. Good speed, 60.9 miles an hour through the Kreisel. And now accelerating again, down from corner 9, out of 11. 13.14 is again a little bit of a problem, but he wings it through and across the line, a quarter second up, 54.42. Again, slightly slower than the 54.35 of the first heat. But everybody seems to be in the same boat. Track not giving up as much speed as it did in the first heat. Again, another good-looking drive from Mickey Vogt. Still not 100% fit. Struggled through most of the last couple of seasons, actually, with recurring back injury, but this is a legacy of the crash in Altenburg. But he can still drive a sled. So Vogt leads with 11 to go. Next up for China, Li Chunjian with Yang Maohan, Shi Yao Long and Chen Hung behind him. And Shi, the 18-year-old, on his debut. At 3, didn't race in Altenburg. They were due to race there. That was due to be his debut, but wasn't. And his 16th World Cup as a driver for Li Chunjian. 10th here in the last World Cup 2 seasons ago, finished 11th in the World Championships. So this is right around par for the course for him. Pinballing down from 0 to 1 isn't going to help. The start was good at 5:20, 5:17 in the first heat, but they will have given that speed away. You can see he's already in the red behind Mickey Vogt. Vogt and his crew started a whisker slower at 5:22. Gaps out to 800s back. Through the Kreisel, not getting the speeds off the sled. For some reason their live telemetry isn't working. Gaps increasing out to 1,200s away. And a little wild, even wilder out of 13. That's going to sap speed out of the sled as well. Quarter of a second back, 54.67, 100th behind Timo Röner. So it's Switzerland 1-2, China 3-5. So he'll be no worse than 13th, as he lies in third with 10 to go. Very late on and off 13. worrying moments. That's where the brakemen feel themselves getting light and coming off the floor of the sled. Oh, well, there you go. 10 down, 10 to go here in Winterberg. Mickey Vogt leads from teammate Timo Röner with Lee Chun-jan in 3rd position. Next up, Jakob's calendar with Laurens Kaufmannis. Arnis Bebris at 3 in for Mads Miknes, who was due to do the 2-man race yesterday and didn't. Did the first heat here and no more, so I'm guessing that Miknes is injured. And it's Maurice Klapt on the back of the sled. Well, tied for 10th. They have the fastest start of the group, 5:19. That's quicker than their 2 tied rivals as well, but still dropping behind Mickey Vogt. Now there is a 1/4 of a second to second, third, 24-25 hundredths back, Röner and Lee. So at the moment, looks as though he's going to drop out of the 10 behind Mickey Vogt. Not too much further back. Uldia, 18 hundredths back, only the 5th best speed. Should still be second at the line, 4th. Well, it is close behind Mickey Vogt. 24 hundredths back, Röner in 2nd, 25 hundredths back, Lee in 3rd, 27 hundredths back, Calendar in 4th. Not the easiest of loads either for the crew. It was Davs Kaufmanns struggling to get in. And Arnis Bebris getting the call up. Well, disappointment for the Latvians. They dropped 3 spots, 9 to go. Switzerland 1-2. We will have a Swiss leader after this sled. This is Cedric Follador with Nicola Mariani, Luca Rolli and Quentin Jahr. Follador starting from the front handles. It's entirely down to personal preference where the driver starts. There's no rule about it. Steve Holcomb used to like to start on the block with his fellow pushers. Lots of drivers start on the front handle. 5:20 start, so they're right in there with everybody around them. This tight lead group, they were only 300ths ahead of the 3-way tie, and they are no longer 300ths ahead of Mickey Vogt. 5th speed. So will we have a Swiss 1-2-3 with 8 to go? And if we do, where is Cedric Follador going to be? Looks like he's going to be behind Mickey Vogt and ahead of Timo Röner, and indeed he is. And that's really their pecking order. Vogt is the #1 driver in the team. That's he is the one that produces the results. Cedric Follador probably just ahead of Timo Röner. So Follador 54.59, slips a spot, but he will still get a top 10 finish. And it was a fairly neat looking run as well. World Cup best of 7th place here. 10th in the World Championships for Follador. 10th in the Worlds, 10th in the World Cup. Less than 12 months later, that sounds pretty much right. Now, Mickey Vogt didn't compete in the World Championships, but he is still leading as we get to Markus Treichel of Austria. Treichel 5th in the World Championships. I beg your pardon, this is Jakob Mandelbauer. Mandelbauer, one of the early starters, first out the start shed, 17th in the World Championships. Best ever World Cup result is 11th. Benefited from very good, or the least bad, let's say, ice conditions. The fastest ice at the beginning of The heat, oh, and hits the wall. Gives away any advantage he might have had. A big 5:19 start, but it went very wrong out of the drive lines. Mandelbauer did not have control of the sled. Hit the wall as the start area narrows, and then skidded all over zero. And he's gone from 700s up on Mickey Vogt to 4/10 back. Absolute disaster for the young Austrian. Only his 4th four-man World Cup, and a run anywhere approaching a first heat would have left him in the top 10, instead of which an utter disaster. 9th at the line, but still with 7 sleds to go. And 17th in the World Championships. Looks like he may well be 17th again here today. And that was over 7/10 slower than their first heat. Watch it, comes out of drive lines, straight into the wall, sideways, big square hit on the zero curve, and you saw the debris from the track coming up from underneath them. And that is the driver running it too far, not having his hands on the steering rings when they run out of drive lines. The grooves are cut to keep the sled straight when the athletes are pushing it. But once the grooves run out, you'd better be driving, boy, especially when you're running down a river from the start area. So, Mickey Vogt still leads as we get to the other lucky jack in the team, or in the field. Matej Behunek of the Czech Republic, 2nd starter, and again had the advantage of decent ice. 11th in Altenburg, his World Cup best performance in his previous 6 World Cup starts. Michal Tobesh, Andre Rapp, and Ladislav Vila are the crew. Get in, get down, get your hands on the D-rings, negotiate the zero curve. 5:27, much better to be a whisker slower than to squander any speed you can put into the sled between the drive lines and turn 1. So from 300s up, after a slightly slower start than Mickey Vogt, deficit of 1100ths of a second. Again, a calm drive here from Behunek. Could well see them in the top dozen. He's gone! That took a long while to happen, and now they're back up again, and that will be less uncomfortable across the line. But across the line he comes, 13th place ahead of Pat Norton, who also crashed. Well, the irony there, because they were so far up the order in the first heat, despite the crash, his 2nd best World Cup result. He can't believe it. He'll be beating himself up for days about that. He'll replay it in his head for weeks and months to come. But it was just a slight misjudgment. And he was trying to perform. And here we go. Late out of 9, and it's coming back, it's coming back, it's coming back. It didn't. It was coming back until he just clipped the wall on the inside there in 10. And that wasn't him driving it, that was him just praying it was coming back up. That was in the lap of the gods, and there they are, heads and shoulders on the ice. And out of 13, out of the spin cycle on the washing machine, it writes itself into 14. And the driver has to hang on to the D-rings and have his wits about him, because it might come back up. And you don't want to go over again. Well, there goes Matej. Absolutely gutted. The boys won't blame him for it. They'll be there to support him once they've dealt with the sled. But it's another track hold with 6 sleds to go. So neither of our two starters who benefited from great ice conditions, unfortunately, able to capitalise. On the right, Mickey Vogt. You can tell it's really raining consistently now. Really miserable evening, I'm afraid. Renn-Wochenende living up to its moniker. So, Mickey Vogt, Cedric Follador, Timo Röner, a Swiss 1, 2, 3. It is too much to expect that the remaining 6 sleds will all tip over and hand the Swiss a remarkable podium sweep. But, you know. So while the little hold is going on, you will forgive me if I just consult my little notes that I have got, and I do not have the last Swiss 4-man medal on this track. So not since the 2007-2008 season have the Swiss had a 4-man medal in Winterberg. In fact, I have got time, although I didn't, to add up how few medals non-Swiss national, non-German nationals have had here. The Swiss 0, Russians 3 or 4, Americans 4 or 5. Pierre Luders was a bronze medalist here in 2007-8. Alexander Zubkov had a couple of wins, 1 win, and a couple of other medals. Steve Holcomb had 2 4-man wins, 2007 and 8, and 2009-10, the Olympic season. One here with Justin Olsen, Steve Messler, and Kurt Tomasevich. And other non-German winners since 2007-8 are nil. So we've had victories here for Christoph Langen, André Lange, Manny Mahata, Thomas Florschutz, Max Arndt, Francesco Friedrich, obviously, Johannes Lochner, obviously, Nico Walter. In fact, Nico Walter, back in race 1, 2018-19, the last man not called Francesco Friedrich or Johannes Lochner to win on this track in a 4-man. Friedrich with 9 wins, including the World Championships in February. So, our jury chairman getting the word from the track. Well, there was a hold, and another hold, and another hold, and another hold, and now finally the sled goes on the ice for Austria's Markus Treichel. Last Austrian medal on this track, 21-22, race 2 in December 2021. Benny Meyer, Sascha Stepan, Christian Huber and Marcus Sammer. Now, 2 of those names are in this sled as well. Opper, Marcus Sammer is not racing today, but has raced this season, along with Markus Treichel. His place being taken by Sebastian Mitterer today. Markus Treichel, silver medalist in Altenburg. If you can do it in one German track, there's no earthly reason why you can't do it on another. And Treichel's best World Cup result on this track is a 6th place. That's where he finds himself. He was 5th in the World Championships in February last year. 5:13 their getaway, 4th fastest in the field. That's part of why it's such a good start to the season. They're all fit and fast and healthy. 5:12, they go quicker. There's only one, I think, other sled. 2 other sleds have gone quicker than their first heat. And those actually were Mandelbauer and Behunek, who started in snowier start conditions than we currently have. 2,400 up, nevertheless, on Mickey Vogt. The gaps are going to increase with every coming sled. Gaps coming down, though. 1,800 up. 11th best speed for Treichel. I think the rain is having its effect. The track is very frosty, and every 5-minute hold makes it frostier still, and slower still, and stickier for the runners. 8th best speed, he's in the red. Vogt's gonna lead. Treichel second by 700ths. Vogt leads, it's a top 6 for Mickey Vogt. Sasha Stepan can't believe it, but that is the changing weather. Now, if the race had got off as it was due to at 2:30, who knows? Maybe we wouldn't have had any crashes, any delays, and the track would not have gone away so much. See the gouges there through 11 from the crashed sleds. Well, not much you can do about it. Good driving from Marcus Treichel. The track not with as much speed in it, or does it? Mickey Vogt leads, 5 to go as we get to Johannes Lochner with Eric Brooker, Joshua Tascher and Flo Bauer on the back. 1700ths their advantage over Mickey Vogt. And they started 5:15. Vogt and his crew started 5:21 in the first heat, 5:20 in the second, 5:13. They go faster again. Hansi Lochner, a multiple medal winner on this track. And if he can't get speed out of here, then it might not be there to be found. Now, he is barely existing on his first heat advantage. In fact, he's lost his first heat advantage. Was 1700ths up. He's now only 1200ths up. And the runners are not gliding freely over the track surface anymore. They are sticking to the ice. 500ths in it. Oh, he's going to really let it try and fly down. 100th back. Is it going to be a dead heat at the line? No, 54.61. The Swiss are in the top 5. René Spies on the left. What can you do? It's getting colder. It's damp. It's raining. The refrigeration is trying to preserve the ice surface and stop it turning to mist. But that means the humid air forms frost. And you can see how treacherous the snowy ice walls are as well. This is not the fault of Mickey Vogt. This is not the fault of anybody else. It's just the weather. Well, Lochner gets his foot caught getting in, legs crossed. I've never seen a start where the driver doesn't get in, or have I? I've seen one where the brakeman doesn't get in. I've seen a few where the brakeman doesn't get in. Well, Johannes Lochner had a one-word response to his first heat. Schade, shame. Not shame, but a disappointment. And I think that's another schade Lauf. So 4 to go. Patrick Baumgartner now. An increasing advantage over Mickey Vogt. Is it going to be enough? 5:15. 5:19 first start. So there's still speed in the start area. But Baumgartner was looking to try and climb 1200ths into the medals. I think the coaches must be hoping that he can somehow find something to at least hold on to his position. 3/10 up at the Kreisel. 5th best speed. Still in the lead. Now, 2900ths. That's his first heat advantage. Oh, should be enough. It is enough, surely. Patrick Baumgartner will lead with 3 to go. 54.47. Simone Battazzo there with a smile on his face. Baumgartner in 4th place. Well, his career best, a silver medal in Beijing at the beginning of last season in what was a smaller field. can hear Lorenzo Bellotti at the back, what it means to them. With Eric Fantazzini and Rob Messia, a 5:15 start, epic starting from the Italians, and Baumgartner driving it up a storm. Let it fly. Three to go. Well, there aren't 3 German sleds left, so work it out for yourself. Here is one of the remaining pair of Germans, Adam Amor. Theo Hempel, Benedikt Hertel, and Rupert Schenk behind him. They started 5:17. They had 1200s in hand. Oh, not a good load. It was a quicker start, but it wasn't tidy. Where's the lead gone? Adam Amor, World Championship bronze medalist in 4-man, is going to have to drive himself back into the medals. Only the 9th best speed. This could be a huge day for the Italians. I'm not sure there's been an Italian 4-man medal in Winterberg this century. 300's back. Baumgartner can barely dare watch, but where's the speed? Oh, he did somehow found it. Oh my Lord, how did he do that? There's Issam Amor, Adam's older brother. He came from 300s back to 300s up, but it didn't look like he had the speed. Wow. Amor is in the medals. Leads with 2 to go. What happens at the start then? Who doesn't get in? It's a slip there at 2, I think, from Theo Hempel. Barely got into the sled, trying to wriggle around his driver. And actually, Benedikt Hertel was sat down before Rupert Schenk as well, which doesn't normally happen. Would normally be the guy at 2 who's last in, but Adam Amor leads, 2 to go. Crazy race, anything can happen. Those words don't normally apply to this man, but today they do. Francesco Frigi with Simon Wolf making his 4-man debut at 2. Matthias Sommer and Felix Straub on the sled. 5:05 start in the first heat. 5:03 in the second. They were 1300s off the lead, only 400s over Adam Amor. They've extended that advantage by a further 1200s in the start, and it's out to 3400s. Little nudge away there in the slow section of the track between 3 and 4 for Friedrich. He was a little bit loosey-goosey in the first heat. He looks like he's got it back under control. No, taps from 7 into 8. Into corner 9, not the greatest speed. Gap's not growing. It's coming back down. 3400s. 9th best speed. He will be the leader with 1 to go. Is this another gold for Friedrich? There's Alex Schuller on the right, 1 in the 2-man yesterday. Alex's first 2-man gold medal of the season. And Friedrich's 50th 2-man World Cup win of his career. And Francesco looking here for his 10th win in Winterberg. But, oh boy, exit a 9. He loves to live life on the edge. Everything is a challenge. So Francesco Friedrich and the crew are the leaders from Adam Amor and Patrick Baumgartner. 1 to go. It's not going to be a German podium sweep. So, Brad Hall, Taylor Lawrence, Aaron Gulliver, Greg Cackett. One of the most experienced braking crews in the business. 31 four-man World Cup starts for Taylor Lawrence today, 52 for Brad Hall, 10 for Aaron Gulliver, 43 for Greg Cackett on the back, the old boy there. And this for a British win in Winterberg. The first time this century, certainly. 5:10 the start. They had 1300s. They still have 600s in hand. Down to 100. Friedrich already with the advantage. Brad Hall dropping behind by a whisker. But he drove better than Friedrich in the first heat. Second best speed. This is going to be close. Best speed of all for Brad Hall in a customer sled, not an FES. He's in green. Key transitions here out of 13. 1300's up. It's going to be a gold medal in Winterberg for Brad Hall. The Germans have been beaten for the first time in Winterberg in nearly 20 years. A British four-man win is a rarity, and in Germany even more so. Johannes Lochner, one of his best buddies in sliding, goes over to congratulate Brad Hall. There's the crew. He held the lead in the first heat, but beating Francesco Friedrich anywhere is never a given. The last non-German winner on this track was Alexander Zubkov in 2012, a dozen years ago. Brad Hall claims victory going away. 1300s ahead of Francesco Friedrich in the first heat, 1300s ahead of Francesco Friedrich in the second heat. There's Taylor Lawrence, Adam Baird there to offer his congratulations, Greg Cackett there as well, Brad Hall in the centre. Where's Aaron Gulliver? Come and get in the shot, says Big T. There he is. 2 races into the season, 2 different winners in the four-man World Cup. Brad Hall victorious by 1900s in the end over Francesco Friedrich. Adam Amor in third, Patrick Baumgartner, Mickey Vogt and Johannes Lochner rounding out the top half dozen ahead of Marcus Treichel, Cedric Follador and Timo Röner. Last time there were 3 Swiss sleds in the top 10. Answers on a postcard, please. Lee Chun-Jan taking 10th ahead of Jacobs Kalender, the recovering Frank Del Duca and Sun Kai-Chi. Then Tentea, Mandelbauer, Austin, Vesselink and Baird finishing 17th after crashes for Mate Behanek and Pat Norton. Well, a much delayed and in the end fairly hesitant final heat. The drivers, the crewmen gave it everything, but several delays, and eventually it comes down to the drive. Brad Hall out driving Francesco Friedrich in the first heat and in the second.
Big result, big result. Thank you, everyone at home.
So Francesco Friedrich is leading the World Cup standing still. Brad Hall now up to second, ahead of Adam Amor and Johannes Lochner. Marcus Treichel in fifth, Patrick Baumgartner in 6th position. And then the Swiss logjam, Cedric Follador just ahead of Timo Röner. And really good for Switzerland and for everybody else to see Mickey Vogt backsliding and backsliding fast as well with a 5th place finish. He's only missed 1 race so far this season. There he is in 14th place. Well, a longer day than anticipated for our four-man crews, an hour-long delay to the start, and then 3 5-minute holds during the race as well. Nevertheless, they kept their focus, kept their concentration, and we ended up with a dramatic finale. And that is it for Winterberg. Next week in the glorious location of Samaritz, as we head to all the action. Skeleton on Friday, mono and two-man on Saturday, women and four-man on Sunday. We'll see you then. Bye for now.